Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, check out those like and subscribe buttons. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. I have a love-hate relationship with Pokemon. I was never super into it as a kid. I played the original when I was little, and of course I watched the anime. I played Pokemon Snap and Stadium on my Nintendo 64, but I never really touched the main series again until the Fire Red and Leaf Green remakes came out. And by then my brain developed more, and I had a way better understanding of what was happening and what I was supposed to be doing. I loved Fire Red, and that was one of the first games that I've ever fully completed. I would later go on to get Pokemon Diamond for the Nintendo DS, and man, it's probably nostalgia, but something about that game in particular made me feel the Pokemon magic that I've heard other people describe when they talk about those first games. Trading Pokemon with my friends to evolve them, sharing tips and secrets with people at school, and the Pokemon designs were so good. Lucario, Luxray, Piplup, those Pokemon designs weren't gold, they're diamond. After that, I kind of hopped off the Pokemon bandwagon, but I would later see trailers for Pokemon X and Y on the 3DS, and my friends were super into it, and people were talking about it, so I figured I would see what the Pokemon world was up to. And X and Y were so good. New Pokemon, 3D models, Mega Evolutions, we got a new Pokemon type, trainer customization, Wonder Trading was awesome, and then the EXP share. The game changed and improved nearly everything. And not only did I get to experience the same sense of wonder and community that Diamond and Pearl gave me, I dare say it was even more fun. And at that point, I was set. I wasn't going to sleep on the series anymore. I loved these games, and if X was that big of an improvement on Diamond, who knows what's in store next? I was definitely going to get the next mainline games. And then Pokemon Sun and Moon came out. And I was really excited for these because I loved Diamond and Pearl, I loved X and Y, I was super hyped. I went to a midnight launch event for these games with my friends, and I was really excited to get started. And then a few hours in, I realized that this wasn't as big of a step forward in the series as Diamond and Pearl and X and Y were. It felt more like a step to the side. Little to nothing changed. I mean, sure, the gym format was different. They took out Mega Evolutions, which, why would you do that? That was the coolest thing ever. And then they swapped them with Z moves, which was a fancy term for a quick time event. Visually, I'd say it was pretty close to X and Y, which is understandable. It was a 3DS, but I don't know. The spark was gone. It just felt hollow compared to the magic I felt with Diamond and Pearl and X and Y. So I ended up not finishing Sun and Moon. And then I skipped Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon because that seemed more of the same. And then the cycle just kind of started again with Sword and Shield. So I got Sword thinking it would be different, but it really wasn't. Visually, it was objectively nicer than Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I don't know if there were technical limitations or short dev times with it being a Switch game, but the visuals here were just really weird. It just didn't feel... It didn't feel finished. It just kind of felt like an emulated 3DS game. It was just off. Regional Pokemon stayed, which I loved, but everything else was swapped out for new gimmicks. Dynamaxing replaced Z moves, and you were only really able to Dynamax during gym battles, which sucks because it's that's the big gimmick, so you should be able to do that anytime you want, you know? The cutscenes were lacking, and then there were no voices for the dialogue. The nicest thing I could say about these games is that the human designs were amazing. The Game Freak artists know how to design a human character. The designs are insane. But overall, the games themselves, it just felt the same. I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I realized that, I really liked Red and Blue, and then I skipped several gens, and then I got Fire Red and Leaf Green, and then I skipped, I think, again, and then got Diamond and Pearl, skipped a few gens again and got X and Y, and all those games are my favorite, and they're my favorite probably because I skipped several generations between games, and so I gave the games time to grow and change, and anytime I played two games back to back, I just didn't like them. So I'm thinking that if I skip Scarlet and Violet, I'll be more impressed and surprised next gen because the changes will build up. So with that said, I skipped Scarlet and Violet because it just really felt like this series has just been taking baby steps, and I want a long stride. I want a long stride Pokemon game change. But looking at the IP itself, there's plenty to love. The world of Pokemon lends itself very nicely to other genres. The spin-offs of Pokemon are just better than the mainline games. I spent so many hours playing Pokemon Stadium on the Nintendo 64 as a kid. Pokemon XD kept the series alive for me until I discovered Diamond. Pokemon Snap? Pokemon Snap is one of my favorite games of all time, and they really knocked it out of the park with the new one. Pokemon Go, beyond being nostalgia bait for millennials, was actually a really fun and innovative idea, and I actually really enjoyed it when I played it. Pokken was really good, and it also featured my favorite Pokemon, Chandelure. And I play Pokemon Unite all the time. I'm a Wigglytuff main. No big deal. Put you to sleep. The animated shorts in the anime were great, and then the Detective Pikachu movie was, like, perfect. That is the best live-action video game adaptation of all time. Hands down. The amount of love for the series that they put into that movie, it was just, it's so good. The art style and the characters really shine in these settings, and I love the idea that if a Pokemon seems useless in the main series, maybe they're important in another. I would have never cared about Wigglytuff had I not played Pokemon Unite, and I fell in love with Alakazam through playing Pokemon Stadium. And Machamp is super cool in Pokken, and even Magikarp has like a really cool mobile game dedicated to them. Ugh. Like that game is also super good. Like the world gave us a Magikarp game, and it's actually amazing. It's so good. And all of these quality spin-offs just reinforce to me that this world deserves quality-made mainline games. I'd love to jump into the mainline games and admire them in the same way I do with Pokemon Mystery Dungeon or Pokemon XD or Pokemon Coliseum. The concept is so cool, discovering new Pokemon, leveling them up to evolve them, completing your decks. The customization and versatility of the Pokemon is so neat too. There are so many combinations of Pokemon and moves to get you to the top, and finding weird ways to evolve your Pokemon is just always fun. And again, the human character designs. Ugh, the character designs. Perfection. I react to new Pokemon Gym Leader designs the same way people at the Nintendo store react to Smash reveals. The designs and the fashion choices, man, I wish there was a place you can go to buy the exact same outfits these characters wear. To the artists at Game Freak, you don't have to ditch Pokemon completely, but please consider making a new game series centering around these human designs. Maybe like a fashion game, or maybe a Persona type game that utilize those designs for the humans. My lord. But back to the main issue here. Pokemon keeps throwing gimmick after gimmick after gimmick out there and doesn't give any of them time to stick. Instead of building upwards, they keep renovating the third floor. We've had Pokemon contests, which were amazing, should have kept them. Pokemon following you around in the overworld. Amazing, should have kept it, but then they got rid of it, and then they gave it back, and then they got rid of it, and they gave it back. We got Mega Evolutions, got rid of. Z-Moves, which I didn't really like in the first place, but got rid of those. Dynamaxing, got rid of those. And now we have Terastallizing, which is like the most ridiculous of them all. Like the models very rarely change, and it's just, I mean, to be fair, I didn't play Scarlet and Violet because, again, you know, I skipped those. But just from the trailers and the reveals and the directs and the gameplay I've seen, it just doesn't... Like, I understand you can't make special designs for all the Pokemon for every gimmick that you do or whatever, but had Mega Evolutions just carried on into the mainline series, you would have just been slowly building an arsenal of Mega Evolution designs for all your Pokemon, and so you could have just been building off of them and adding more with each gen, and it would have been fine. It's just so weird to me. Why do they keep doing this? But then, like, we're able to make sandwiches, which is like a weird new mechanic, but are we gonna see that in the next game? I don't know. I just think the series at this point needs to be more conservative when it comes to these new gimmicks and give everything else time to flesh out. The gimmicks that you're able to pull off at camp are worth exploring, and if you keep that in the mainline series, it may turn into something really, really cool. And by the time you move to the next thing, you already have a new pillar of gameplay. It just makes so much sense to me. I just don't understand why they don't see it that way. And maybe the changes between the games are adding up, but since I'm playing them back to back, it's just not that noticeable. Maybe the true way to play these games is to skip 1 or 2 gens between the entries. But some things just bother me seeing them on the big screen. I hate NPCs walking in a straight line, the stupid fade to black when NPCs leave, and then just the lack of voice acting. It's all just more noticeable now that it's blown up on my TV. I mean, when it was on the 3DS, it looked fine, but now it's on a TV. And so all these errors are just way more apparent. And it's even crazier to me because when you look at the quality of the remakes, they're pretty amazing remakes. Fire Red was pretty much a 1-1 of the original games in color, but with just better sprite work. Gold and Soul Silver, again, 1-1 remakes with better graphics. Pokemon followed you around, and it was compatible with Diamond and Pearl, and it included the entire Kanto region, just like the original. Very great upgrade from the original experience. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire was an upgraded experience from the originals. It had new Pokemon forms, and it included a weird side story about parallel dimensions and mega evolutions. Those are really great. And slightly controversial here, but even Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee had a really nice visual presentation. The co-op, in theory, was a really fun idea, even though it made the game ridiculously easy. Obviously, it's for kids, but the Pokemon followed you around in the overworld, and wild Pokemon roamed around. And looking at Let's Go, I was really, really excited for the eventual Diamond and Pearl remakes to look like this. I think that even though it was lower scale than Sword and Shield, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee was more visually consistent, and I'll take visual consistency over, graphical quality any day of the week. I don't need my Pokemon games in 4K with ray tracing or whatever. I just want, consistency. And Sword and Shield, and even some of the bits that I was seeing in Scarlet and Violet, some areas look really great, and other areas just look like trash, and it's all the same game. Whereas you look at Pokemon Let's Go, and even though it's obviously smaller, it's just more visually appealing. There's no areas in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee that just look like trash compared to everything else. It's the same. And so I really liked how it looked, and I was really hoping that the Diamond and Pearl remakes were gonna look like Let's Go. And then it came out, and it was a dumpster fire. Ugh! I was so upset. I'm so nostalgic for Diamond and Pearl, and I sat patiently while they remade all of these games, and I was just waiting for my turn, waiting for the remakes, and then the remakes come out, and it just looked like absolute trash. I was so pissed. We couldn't even get the Sword and Shield treatment, and I was expecting a Let's Go situation, which that would have been so cute. Why did they, the chibi characters just look so ugly? Maybe they just can't handle modern gen hardware. I mean, the original sprite work is so beautiful in the older games, and it kind of makes me think, that was their strength. If you look at the sprite work from Black and White 2, and the Game Boy games, the sprite work was amazing. And they don't really get to do that anymore with the newer games, with the 3D models and stuff. And maybe if they give us an Octopath Traveler stylized pixel art experience, they could focus on giving us more quality on everything else. Or they could just take their time on the games. I don't know. Anyway, I'm still excited for the next mainline entries, so I'll see if my strategy to like the mainline games worked or not. And by then, there'll be 100+ new little critters to learn and remember. And in the meantime, I'll just stick with Pokemon Unite. So, what do you think about the Pokemon series? What do you want to see in the next games? What do you think about Scarlet and Violet, too? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll talk to you again next week. Bye.